How do you write a pop song when you think the world is about to end? Right now, millions of teenagers use the track Forever Young as a lighthearted, nostalgic background for their TikTok videos. But that viral trend is built on a specific, terrifying historical context. To understand the track, you have to go back to West Germany in 1984. The United States and the Soviet Union had thousands of nuclear warheads pointed directly at each other, and NATO exercises had just nearly triggered an actual nuclear exchange. For young people growing up in Europe, the possibility of sudden annihilation wasn't abstract. It was a daily psychological reality, punctuated by regular air raid drills and the ear-splitting noise of local siren tests. Every sunrise felt like a small miracle. This environment of inescapable dread became the unlikely crucible for a hopeful pop melody. When a young synth-pop trio called Alphaville started working on Forever Young, they initially envisioned a fast, 16-beat groove influenced by the DJ scene. But after 2 days of trying to force the track into a club-friendly tempo, their producer made a radical suggestion: strip away all the complex percussion and leave only the absolute essentials. They rebuilt the song as a minimalist soundscape. Without access to a real orchestra, they relied on a Roland Jupiter 8 synthesizer to provide deep, swelling analog pads underneath an isolated vocal track. By dropping the tempo and clearing out the noise, the band found a sparse, hymn-like quality that remained relevant long after the 1980s club scene faded. Lead singer Marian Gold often wrote his lyrics by pulling phrases from movie posters and book titles, mashing them together until they took on an entirely new meaning. Releasing the track in 1984 added heavy literary baggage. Thanks to George Orwell's famous dystopian novel, that specific year was already globally recognized as shorthand for totalitarian surveillance and the erasure of individual freedom. The lyrics began with those familiar, dreamy metaphors, but halfway through the first verse, the poetry suddenly shatters. On the sheet music, you pinpoint where the tone shifts. Gold asks the terrifying question: are you going to drop the bomb or not? Following the notes down, the chorus presents a stark choice: let us die young or let us live forever. These lyrics allowed a generation to stare into the face of a potential apocalypse while still reaching for hope. The entire weight of that existential dread rests on a single vocal challenge in the chorus. This musical notation highlights the physical peak of the track. Right on the word forever, the singer asks, "Do you really want to live forever?" And the melody leaps to a precarious high C. Marian Gold had a uniquely powerful instrument with rich overtones that easily cut through the mix. But even for a singer of his caliber, sustaining that pitch demands absolute physical exertion and conveys a sense of genuine human urgency. You can hear the raw, authentic strain in his voice. It mirrors the psychological strain of a youth culture pleading for a future that wasn't guaranteed. Pushing the human voice to a high C is a technical feat, but here it acts as a defiant scream against a world teetering on the edge of destruction. When the Berlin Wall eventually fell and the immediate threat of a nuclear standoff faded, that divided world became history. But Forever Young did not fade with it. In 2009, Jay-Z sampled the track for Young Forever, translating those 1980s anxieties into a hip-hop anthem asking legacy and success. Recently, it surged past 1.2 billion streams, finding a place on massive electronic festival stages through remixes by producers like David Guetta. The song adapts to its listener. It provides a specific emotional resonance, whether that's literal survival or the fear of growing old, that hits home for every generation that discovers it. Whether it's the threat of a nuclear strike in 1984 or the compounding global crises facing Gen Z today, every generation has its own metaphorical bomb to fear. The song's endurance comes from its ability to acknowledge that terror while still resolving into a celebration of life. When the future is entirely out of your control, the most deeply human response is to look up at the sky and choose to sing about living forever.